Welcome back to the channel, Racer X here, and today I've got a pretty cool little video planned. I want to address something I've been getting a ton of questions about. Obviously, you guys have been following the Mustang GT twin turbo build from Hellion, and the question I get repeatedly is, Racer X, how much does it cost to do something like that? Well, today I will actually address that. I will not only talk about the Mustang, but also some different routes you can go, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the other platforms and options out there as well. So anyway, guys, if you're new to my channel, do me a gigantic favor, hit subscribe. It's located right down there at the bottom. Also, you can follow me on Instagram and hit that notification bell, and here we go.
T-minus 15 seconds.
So a little while back, I thought about maybe taking the channel in a little bit different direction. Certainly continuing to do Mopar content, but I wanted to do something new and something fun, and really kind of just something that intrigued me. And I've been seeing a lot about these twin turbo Coyotes and just how fast these Mustang 5.0s can be with the right kit. So I actually got in touch with Hellion. We talked about it quite a bit, and before I ever bought this car, we had agreed to do kind of a sponsorship deal, and I've been very, very excited about that. So at any rate, I wanted to go ahead and do a full twin turbo build on this particular car, make it a lot of fun, and just do something a little bit different for the channel. And I have absolutely been very, very impressed with what this thing has been able to do, but it hasn't been without a little bit of financial cost. And so today, I'm going to address how much does it really cost to do a twin turbo Coyote like this from Hellion, and so let's jump into it. Now, I do also get a lot of questions about, well, listen, Racer X, you maybe should have just gone with a supercharger on that car. It would have been less cost, and there are some other benefits, obviously, to a supercharger kit, lots of different kits out there. That is a completely different video. I will tell you exactly why I went twin turbo. I'll kind of go over the merits of really both forced induction systems like that. But today we're going to just mostly focus on the cost to do something like this. And there are lots of different ways. I need to stress that. There are a lot of different ways you can go with the twin turbo build. And I'll tell you really kind of what you can do initially. And then I'll talk about my build and why I went this direction. But it's so hot out here. It's June in Texas, so I shouldn't be surprised, but it is really hot. I'm going to jump in the car really quick, and I'm going to run through the numbers with you. All right, so here is the deal. A lot of times when you're working on car stuff, sometimes the best idea is to just not focus so much about how much you're spending, because it gets a little depressing at times. Cars are just an extremely expensive hobby, whether it's just the cost up front, whether it's maintaining them, whether it's modifying them, whatever it may be. But it's what we do, right? We're car people, and that's what makes it enjoyable. Now, with Mustangs, and of course with a lot of other makes as well, you've got a couple of options. You could always go forced induction. You could go, you could keep things naturally aspirated, and these Coyotes actually do quite well when they're naturally aspirated with like an E85 tune and long tubes and all that kind of stuff. They're really fast. But I definitely bought this car with the sole purpose or sole intention of boosting it with a twin turbo kit. And there are a couple of different kind of groups in the game, if you will. I've always felt like Hellion, they were absolutely the very top of the list. They were sort of that pinnacle of twin turbo kits. They have a lot of configurability. They have their 62 millimeter in-house turbos, which are absolutely fantastic, all the way up to just monster turbos and everything in between. So really, you can set your car up to run anywhere from like 600 to 2,000 horsepower with these guys. And that's what I meant by there are so many ways to configure these turbo kits from Hellion. You can get right on their website. You can see all the different kits that they have, and within each make you can kind of configure the kit the exact way that you want to, which is pretty darn cool. So really the first way that I want to talk about is kind of just that basic way to just get maybe say 650 horsepower to the tire. And keep in mind, that is a lot of power, because we get really spoiled by all the internet numbers that are out there. You know, so everybody makes 2,000 horsepower. Now, it doesn't work that way, guys.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
So 650 horsepower is faster than a stock Hellcat. It is very impressive when you're talking about coming from a naturally aspirated application. So whether it's a Mustang, Camaro, Scat Pack, whatever, this is a fantastic way to go. As a matter of fact, for the Camaros and the Scat Pack guys out there, I would highly recommend just buying Hellion's base kit, which will flow way more power than those engines will hold. It comes with twin 62s. It's $7,000 for the Mustang kit, a little bit more for the Mopar and the Camaro, but not a whole lot more. I would also recommend maybe a booster pump for about $350. Now you do have to pay for install on this unless you're super mechanically inclined, you have a lift, all the right tools. It's not that easy to do if you're just for the average guy without all the right stuff. But I just kind of put the cost of that in there as well at maybe $2,500 to $3,000 for the install. We'll call it maybe 25 to 30 hours for an experienced guy to go in and completely do everything just right. And then of course you got the cost of tuning. We're going to call it about $1,000 because you do have to pay for the RTD device to connect to the computer and kind of do your data logging and loading your tunes in as well. But when it's all said and done, you can have 650 real world horsepower, order Hellion's base kit, and just have an absolute blast for really between $10,000 and $11,000. Pretty much everything included, all installed. It's actually a really, really good way to go. It keeps the car relatively safe on lower boost and just keeps it on the spring. You don't necessarily have to order the Turbo Smart here to kind of raise your boost up and down because the engine, unless you build them, a lot of times won't handle that much horsepower. The Coyote's a little bit of a different deal because it will handle more boost than the LS or LT platforms, and certainly the 6.4 and the 5.7 Hemis out there. But a fantastic way to go. 10 to 11 grand, and really, if you kind of think about it, it's basically the same price as a supercharger kit would be for these, whether it's a Whipple or Maggie or whatever it may be. I kind of do all the math out the door. You're really looking at about the same price. Now, here is the deal with my kit. Obviously, I have a highly upgraded Hellion kit. I've got the upgraded turbos. They're bigger. They're 64s. They're ball bearing. They're turbonetics. I mean, they're absolutely fantastic. And that, of course, costs a little bit more money. I've got the boost gauge and a couple other upgrades, certainly in my kit. So my kit would be right around $11,000 if you wanted to call Hellion and order that. Now, I also have the big fuel system. I've got the 4 Innovations triple hat, Bad Daddy lines, everything, pretty much the baddest fuel system you can get. And as I mentioned, I wanted more than enough fuel for later if I wanted to really turn up the wick on this thing and make big power. I've already got more than enough fuel. About $2,400 is what that fuel system costs alone. I also did 1,300cc injectors, and typically the more expensive the injector, the bigger the injector, the more expensive it is. These particular injectors from ID are about $2,000, but they're some of the best injectors on the market, which is pretty much how I've done this entire car. Also, my oil pump gears, about $300. They're not terribly expensive, but the install on those things is awful. You saw Matt, my man over there at Gearheads, he had to take half the car apart to put those things in. So a little bit to go there. Certainly my X-Mod exhaust, which is another big part of kind of this entire system, that's $3,200 from Magnaflow. Now, you don't necessarily have to go that route. There are a lot of other systems out there that are fantastic. I'm talking about my individual setup. I absolutely love the Magnaflow exhaust, and it's a big 3-inch all the way through, so that way it will maintain power. It won't lose anything with any neck downs or whatever. We did that on purpose. So $3,200 for my Magnaflow exhaust. My tuning, as I mentioned before, about $750. We've got a $300 RTD device, so I can connect the car, obviously, to my computer and do what I need to do there. And then it's also about installation and dyno time. And both of those things are important because I wanted to make sure the car could get on the dyno, really get dialed in. And of course, when I talk about installation, I'm saying somewhere around $5,000, and that could vary quite a bit, guys. I'm just kind of throwing some round ballpark numbers out there, but keep in mind, this is pretty invasive. Like I said, the oil pump gears have to come basically all apart. The entire fuel system had to be installed as well, so there were a lot of other things that I had to do with this particular setup over, say, like a base kit to kind of get this thing installed and get it to where it is. So at the end of the day, when you add all that up, it's basically $25,000 to duplicate this exact setup, and I'm actually not done yet. So as you can see, you do definitely have to pay to play, and typically the more you turn up the wick on these cars, the more exponentially expensive things get. That's just kind of the nature of the beast, guys. But I'm really trying to be transparent with you and give you real world numbers. A lot of people like to throw these numbers out there that just aren't realistic when it's all said and done. And speed is expensive. I learned that a really long time ago. And keep in mind, guys, I've got a lot of other stuff to do here. So now that I've got all this power in the car, as you've seen, the car pretty easily makes right about 900 to the wheel, and that's only on 12.5 pounds of boost. That is more than double the factory horsepower, and this thing, it is a missile. I can't wait to do some tests for you, but next thing I've got to do is I've got to work on my driveline and my suspension a little bit. So my axles for this car, are going to be about $2,000. Those are G-Force Outlaw axles. So anyway, those are going to be coming. Also from DSS, I'm going to get a really, really awesome drive shaft. You figure $1,500 for a new drive shaft, so you're $3,500 there. And then I've also got I've got a lockout kit coming for the car and some other suspension goodies. I can't even tell you what the cost of those things are going to be, but we'll just call it roundabout another probably $5,000 to $6,000 in driveline and suspension parts that are going to go into this. And then later, whenever I want to go to that setup, I'll have to pull the transmission and the engine back out of this car, and then we will go ahead and build the transmission. And I really, between $3,000 and $5,000 is kind of what I'm noticing on a built transmission for these, to kind of send them out, get them done right, get the hardened parts in, and that's to keep the 10R80, the 10-speed transmission. Next comes the actual building of the engine itself. And in order to do that, obviously you have to pull the engine out of the car. You've got to go ahead and send the block off itself. Go send it out, get it sleeved, because I'm trying to do this thing the right way. Can you do this build without sleeving the block? Yes, but I feel like sleeving the block is the right way to do it. It certainly will hold more power more effectively that way. So you send it out, you get it sleeved, you get it back in, you get your forged pistons and rods and all the good stuff that go in the actual engine itself. And to get it all sealed up and back in the car, you're looking at somewhere probably around 10 grand, or maybe even a little bit more. And that might be even on the conservative side of things. So by the time you're done paying for driveline parts, you're done paying for, I've got new wheels coming for the car, possibly even bigger brakes, all that good stuff. You get the engine and transmission built, all of that good stuff. If we're being completely realistic, by the time it's all said and done, I will probably have at least $50,000 in aftermarket stuff on this car. Yes, the car will probably be able to make 1,300 reliable horsepower, and it will be probably an 8-second car somewhere in there. It will be an absolute rocket, which it already is a rocket, don't get me wrong. But like I said, that's kind of stage 3 way down the line. But you can see just how the cost of this build just keeps going up and up and up. And it's no different whether you're doing the supercharged stuff. Keep in mind, guys, you turn superchargers up over like 7 pounds on a lot of these engines. They don't like it, and chances are you may have some engine failure. So you kind of have to go down that same sort of path, regardless of the boost application that you're really on. I just want to clarify that. So here is really what it all boils down to. So for $10,000 to $11,000, really out the door, installed, everything, you can have yourself a car that used to be naturally aspirated, whether it's a Camaro, whether it's a Mustang, a Mopar, it's the, any of the Hemis that are naturally aspirated. I mean, you can have a car that makes 630 to 650 wheel reliably on pump gas for 10 to 11 out the door. And I think that's fantastic, because we're talking about a whole nother level of speed. And obviously, as we go up in power, things get a lot more expensive. Now, you could start out with like a Hellcat or a Shelby or something like that and add the twin turbos to it, do a compound boost type setup, and then the numbers really kind of get goofy a little bit. But when we're talking about, like I said, this kind of setup, you go up to a build like mine, you're looking at 25 grand to get it really where it is right now. And to get it really completely all built up and to turn it into just that monster that makes, 1,300 something horsepower, you're looking at more like $50,000 to do it right. And I realize there's always guys out there trying to take shortcuts. Well, you could have done this, or I can do this myself, and da-da-da. And there's always those guys who are like, I can do the same exact stuff for $2,000. And, no, you can't. I'm telling you. In order to do it right, guys, and I typically try not to steer you guys wrong when I talk about numbers or really anything. I try and just be transparent and honest with you. You have to do a lot of budgeting when you go to talk about power numbers, because the internet lies to you. I've told you this, guys, many, many times. You look all over the internet and you see 1320, and this guy makes 1,500, this guy makes 2,000, this guy makes space shuttle type numbers, and da 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 da. I mean, you're talking about cubic dollar here, guys. I promise you, they have poured money into those builds like you will not believe. For the average person, including me, that isn't all that realistic. So I'm very blessed to have the sponsors that I do, so I can showcase exactly what these kits are capable of. I hope you guys will consider going with the Hellion kit, because I love this thing. It is so fast and so much fun, and you guys can actually have the same amount of fun in your vehicles. Just budget the right way and know what you're getting into ahead of time. Now, I do also want to caveat it with the whole reason I kind of went on the Mustang platform to do this build was because that Coyote is so robust, really. I mean, it's just the dual overhead cams, certainly the direct injection, and the 4 valves per cylinder, and just the way that this engine is constructed, it really does hold up with boost just a little bit better, which is why you can see me run that 12.5 pounds. But keep in mind, it really won't do that very well on pump gas, and so that's why I went to E85, which was a big cost if you go back and look at the numbers. But anyway, guys, I hope hope just this helped you guys to make a clear and concise decision in terms of, you know, be realistic with your power numbers, know the budget going in, do your homework on all these builds, and then just have fun with it and be safe. And I will catch you guys on the next one. So until then, Racer X.